I came to return my ex's things. Her roommate opened the door and changed my life. The cardboard box nearly slipped from my hands the moment the front door opened. I had rehearsed 100 different endings to the relationship that had already broken me, but I had never imagined that a complete stranger would answer the door instead of my ex. The woman standing there looked surprised for only a second before her expression softened, almost as if she had been expecting someone carrying more than just a box of forgotten belongings. In that single silent moment, my carefully built walls began to crack in ways I never thought possible. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances can truly change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us the best chapters often begin after our hardest endings. My name is Nathan, and this happened in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. 6 months earlier, my relationship with Rachel had ended, without screaming, betrayal, or dramatic scenes. Sometimes the deepest heartbreak arrives quietly. We had simply grown into different people. She wanted a future across the country with a demanding career, while I wanted to stay close to my aging parents after my father's health began to decline. Love wasn't enough to bridge the distance between two completely different dreams. The box I carried held everything Rachel had accidentally left behind at my apartment. A knitted blanket, a family photo, a favorite coffee mug, a flashlight she always kept in her car, and a few books with notes scribbled in the margins. I could have shipped them, but some part of me believed returning them in person would finally help me close the door on that chapter of my life. Instead, another door opened. A woman smiled gently and introduced herself as Grace. Rachel had already moved to Seattle 2 weeks earlier for work, she explained. Grace had only recently taken over the lease. She apologized that Rachel had forgotten to tell me. I stood frozen on the porch, suddenly feeling foolish after driving nearly 3 hours. My carefully prepared goodbye had nowhere to go. Seeing the disappointment on my face, Grace quietly invited me inside for a glass of iced tea before my long drive home. Normally I would have refused, but exhaustion has a way of lowering every emotional defense. Her small living room felt warm without trying too hard. Nothing expensive, nothing perfect, just comfortable. Family photographs rested beside bookshelves, filled with novels, cookbooks, and children's stories. As we talked, I learned Grace volunteered every weekend at a community learning center for children whose parents worked multiple jobs. During the week, she worked as a physical therapist at a local rehabilitation clinic. There was a calm confidence about her that made people feel heard without her saying very much. She never asked painful questions about my breakup. Instead, she asked about my parents, my woodworking hobby, and why I looked so tired beyond the obvious. For the first time in months, someone noticed the weight I carried that had nothing to do with losing Rachel. When I finally stood to leave, Grace handed me a folded piece of paper. It was Rachel's new mailing address. She had found it tucked inside a cabinet while unpacking. I thanked her sincerely, but after reaching my truck, I stared at the address for several minutes before slowly tearing it into tiny pieces. Not because I hated Rachel, but because I realized I no longer needed one final conversation to heal. Weeks passed. Then, one Saturday morning, I received an unexpected message from Grace. She had somehow found my number inside the box where I had written it months earlier, in case Rachel had questioned. The learning center desperately needed volunteers to repair broken tables, shelves, and playground benches before the children returned after summer break. She remembered I enjoyed woodworking and wondered if I might be willing to help. I almost said no. Heartbreak has a strange way of convincing people to avoid anything that might matter again. But something inside me whispered that staying home had never healed anyone. That Saturday became every Saturday. Soon I wasn't simply repairing furniture. I was building reading corners, painting colorful bookshelves, and teaching older kids how to safely use simple hand tools. Watching children proudly create something with their own hands slowly repaired something inside me that I hadn't realized was broken. Grace and I became friends first, real friends. The kind who could sit in comfortable silence after a difficult day. She had experienced loss herself, after losing her mother several years earlier to illness. Instead of allowing grief to harden her heart, she had chosen to spend her life helping others recover physically and emotionally. She never tried to rescue me. She simply reminded me that healing grows best where kindness lives. One autumn afternoon, my father surprised everyone by visiting the learning center. He watched children laughing around the wooden reading nook I had built. On the drive home, he quietly admitted he hadn't seen me smile like that in years. His words stayed with me far longer than he probably realized. As the seasons changed, so did my life. My relationship with Grace wasn't built on dramatic sparks or impossible coincidences. It was built one ordinary act of kindness at a time, shared meals after volunteer projects, long walks through neighborhood parks, prayers before difficult days, helping my parents when they needed an extra pair of hands. Loving each other became less about finding perfection and more about choosing compassion every single day. If this story has touched your heart so far, I'd love to ask something special. Please leave a comment telling us about a moment when an unexpected act of kindness changed your own life. Your story might become the encouragement someone else desperately needs today. 2 years later, standing inside the same little house where I had once arrived carrying a box full of memories, I found myself carrying something entirely different. A small ring rested inside my jacket pocket as Grace opened the same front door with the same gentle smile that had first welcomed a broken stranger. Only this time, there were no old belongings between us, only a future waiting to be built together. Life has a remarkable way of surprising us. Sometimes we believe we're closing the final chapter of our happiest story, only to discover we're still reading the introduction. I drove to that house, believing I was returning pieces of my past. Instead, I unknowingly walked into the beginning of my future. And if this story reminded you that hope often arrives when we least expect it, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more uplifting stories. Until next time, never underestimate the life-changing power of one open door, one kind heart, and one unexpected second chance.